At the time, I was a sailor in the Navy. I was undergoing military training in the mountains of Kure, about 30 kilometers from Hiroshima. On August 6, 1945, an American airplane dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima. That night, around 3 a.m. on the 7th, I went to Hiroshima. The sky above the town was still red from the smoke of the fires. I passed through areas where the fires were still burning and went to the East Drill Ground behind Hiroshima Station. The scene I saw was terrifying. The ground of the vast drill ground was covered with blackened bodies. People who could not move were moaning in pain. Eventually, the eastern sky began to brighten. It felt as if we were standing in hell. There were so many people lying on the ground that there was no place to put our feet. In the darkness, we couldn't see them, but as it grew lighter, we realized they were human beings. Some had lost their faces and ears. Soldiers lay dead with their clothes torn and their legs swollen. There were even horses with their skin peeled off, their heads raised, staring at us. No one spoke. They only moaned and screamed. From the town, wounded people slowly made their way toward us. In the center of the drill ground, there was a long trench dug for training purposes. It was filled with reddish water. People whose bodies had been burned approached the water, desperate to drink. But as soon as they put the water in their mouths, they collapsed as if they had drunk poison. A military doctor said, "Don't let the burned people drink water. Drinking water will kill them." But even when we tried to stop them, they couldn't help but drink. Because they were already near death, even without drinking water. We set up tents by avoiding the bodies and created a makeshift medical station. The military doctor examined each person's eyes one by one and selected those who were still alive. We carried them into the tents. Soon, the tents were filled to capacity. We had no choice but to erect Red Cross flags under trees or on open grassy areas and gather the living there. That day's work ended as we continued to transport the bodies. At night, the sky over the town was still glowing red. The red light reflected on the creek, making it look like a river of blood. We set up tents in the woods and took turns sleeping. That night, I heard the cry of a baby. I thought it was a dream, but when I woke up again after sleeping for a while, I heard the baby's voice again. I got up, took a flashlight, and searched, but I couldn't find anyone. It was time to relieve the others, so we went to help with the restoration work at the damaged Hiroshima station. At dawn, we returned to the tent. There, right behind the tent, were the baby and its mother. The mother was sitting, holding the baby. The baby had its face pressed against the mother's chest. "Mi-chan, Mi-chan. You're Mi-chan, aren't you?" The mother stroked the baby's face. Her eyes seemed to be closed. I thought she must have lost her sight when the house collapsed and had come here searching for her baby. "Mi-chan, Mi-chan." The mother called out repeatedly, but her voice grew weaker. The skin on her back was peeling off in large patches. "Hold on, mother," I blurted out. But she didn't respond. After a while I called out to the baby again. I couldn't bring myself to leave the spot. But I didn't know what to do. I returned to the tent. Then the baby's cries sounded louder than before. When I went back, the mother was dead. The baby was crying, trying to suckle on the mother's stiff chest. I picked up the baby. At that moment, the mother's cold hands were still tightly holding the baby. "It's okay. Mom, I'll take care of this child. I was a soldier, so I shouldn't have taken the baby. But if I didn't say that, they would have taken the baby away." I ran to the station with the baby in my arms. Along the way, I wondered about the baby's name and went back. I took the name tag sewn onto the mother's chest. But no matter where I looked, there was no one who would take the baby. Everyone was too busy with their own injuries and suffering. Near the station, I found two people loading their belongings onto a cart and trying to escape. "Excuse me, could you please take this baby? The mother has passed away." After hesitating for a moment, they said, "Sure, we'll take it. There's a first aid station at the station." I returned without handing over the name tag. When I returned to the tent, dinner had already begun. I was scolded by the sergeant and beaten. I didn't mention the baby. No matter how much I explained, it was because I, a soldier, had acted on my own. At that moment, I realized for the first time how tragic war could be. Many years passed. 7 years after the war ended, I was listening to the radio. Then, during a segment called Time for Inquiries, an appeal was broadcast. "We are searching for a Navy soldier who entrusted a baby to a family who was transporting 1 or 2 infants in a cart at the military training ground in Hiroshima." I was very surprised. However, I had missed the first part, so I didn't know the name or address of the person making the appeal. Still, I suddenly remembered that day, which I had completely forgotten. The face of the baby's mother, who had been called Mi-chan, clearly came to mind. At first, I thought the deceased mother might be looking for me. But that couldn't be true. I thought it might be the people who had pulled the cart at the time. I listened to the radio for 3 days straight, hoping the same broadcast would air again. But it never did. Suddenly, I remembered that I had kept the name tag I had taken from the mother's chest all those years ago in my notebook. After searching for a long time, I found it. I went to the radio station and asked for the address. I wrote a letter and asked, could this be about the baby from that time? Soon, I received a reply. It contained something unexpected. I never expected to receive a reply so quickly. I didn't know if the soldier was still alive, and even if he was, I didn't think he would remember. But I couldn't forget the soldier who had been running with the baby in his arms, so I asked the radio station for help. At the time, we took the baby in without much thought. But when we went to the station and everywhere else, no one would take the baby. We relied on relatives and went all the way to Kamihachi City. But even there, no one would help us. At that moment, I thought, this child must be the reincarnation of Hiroko, who had died. At the time, we had just lost our own baby. So we named her Hiroko and raised her. But in February of this year, my husband suddenly coughed up blood and died. He hadn't been exposed to the atomic bomb blast, but 7 years later, he developed leukemia. After my husband died, our lives became very difficult. We've come to my husband's hometown, but we're unsure how to raise this child, so we made an appeal on the radio. As I read the letter, I thought, Hiokochan is alive, and I said thank you out loud. But I didn't know what to do. I wanted to go see her immediately, but I was working at a company and couldn't just take time off. I wrote back in a letter, please wait until summer. I will definitely come to Hiroshima. That summer, I went to Hiroshima. It was very hot that day, and I remembered that day. We met at the station. Hiokochan was wearing red canvas shoes and a sailor-style dress. I was wearing a white shirt, navy blue pants, and a Homburg hat. You're Mr. Hashimoto, right? Yes. I'm in age. I felt strange. I didn't know what to say. The city of Hiroshima had completely changed. Hiokochan was shyly hiding behind her mother's sleeve. This child doesn't know anything. She's so happy, I thought. That day I talked to Hiokochan's mother for the first time. Her mother listened intently at first, but gradually began to cry. Yes, I decided before coming here today. Hiroko is still my child. No matter what anyone says, I won't give her up, she said tearfully. That mother is truly admirable. I feel ashamed. I couldn't do anything at that time, I said. In her place, I will truly become Hiroko's mother, her mother said. Hiroko-chan returned to Shimane that evening. We promised to meet again after graduating middle school. I felt a little sad because we could only spend half a day together and didn't get to talk much. When Hiroko-chan boarded the train, I bought her a pineapple ice cream and handed it to her. At that moment, she said, "Thank you," in a soft voice. The dark shadow of Hiroko-chan at that moment really bothered me. Later, another letter arrived from Hiroko-chan's mother. The letter contained sad news. The house where they were currently living in Shimane was the home of her late husband. There lived Hiroko-chan's step-grandmother, her husband's mother. The step-grandmother disliked Hiroko-chan and often mistreated her. Every time she thought of her real grandchild, she treated Hiroko-chan harshly. One day, the grandmother said to Hiroko-chan, "You're just an adopted child." Her mother was very troubled. Maybe I should tell her the truth. The letter said that. I didn't know the answer either. When I first met Hiroko-chan in Hiroshima, she seemed to know nothing. But I wondered if she might be feeling something deep down. Perhaps Hiroko-chan could sense the mother's hesitation about wanting to send her away. I thought about it. Maybe we could leave the countryside and start a new life together. I wrote a letter with that in mind. By the end of that year, another letter arrived from the mother. It said that she had moved to Hiroshima with Hiroko-chan. The mother had found a job living and working at a small sewing school. Hiroko-chan would also be able to learn sewing there. I felt relieved. After that, I received 2 or 3 more letters, but they grew shorter and shorter until they stopped coming altogether. I gradually began to forget about Hiroko-chan. However, several years later, this spring, I received a letter from her again. It said that she had graduated from middle school and asked me to please come visit and tell her about her mother. I decided to go to Hiroshima. I planned to go on the anniversary of the atomic bomb. Hiroko-chan was now 15 years old. She had graduated from middle school and was studying dressmaking at the same school where her mother worked. She had grown up so much. I regretted a little that I had come on the anniversary. There were various ceremonies taking place in the town, but they felt different from our memories. That day, I had decided to tell Hiroko-chan about her mother. But even as we walked around the town together, I couldn't find the right opportunity to start the conversation. We walked around until evening and were completely exhausted. In the evening, we entered a restaurant. The back of the restaurant faced the river, and we could see the river through the window. "Hiroko-chan, can you sew clothes now?" "No, I'm sewing a shirt right now." As we talked, I glanced at the river. Something red was floating down the river. "What's that?" I asked. "And it's the lantern floating ceremony. They did it last year too. It's beautiful," Hiroko-chan explained. The lantern floating ceremony is a tradition where lanterns with the names of those who died in the atomic bomb written on them are floated down the river. I had read about it in the newspaper last year. I thought, I have to tell her now. I took the cloth name tag out of my pocket. "Hiroko-chan, do you know what this is?" The name tag read, "Hiroshima City. Yokogaga Cho Tumanis 3, Hasegawa Seiko. Blood type A." "What is this?" Hiroko-chan asked curiously, touching it gently with her fingertips. I looked out the window at the lanterns and began to speak slowly. "Long ago, when Hiroshima was destroyed, the mother whose name is on this name tag was holding you." Hiroko-chan listened quietly. I thought, what if she starts crying? But when I looked at her face, I felt reassured. Hiroko pressed the name tag to her chest, looked at me, and smiled. "Do I look like my mother?" she asked. I felt both happy and sad, and tears welled up in my eyes. Hiroko was a strong girl. She had lived her life without giving up on anything. "We should go home so your mother won't worry," I said. As we left the cafeteria and crossed the bridge, it was crowded with people watching the lanterns. We passed through the crowd and came to a slightly darker area. At that moment, Hiroko-chan whispered, "I wish we could meet again." She might have been crying at that moment. That night, I stayed in a room at the sewing school. The next morning, when I woke up, her mother came out and said, "Hiroko didn't sleep at all last night." "I see," I said worriedly, but she replied, "No, she was sewing your shirt all night. Take a look." Her mother showed me the shirt, wrapped in a small package with a happy expression. "Don't tell anyone. If I tell her, she'll scold me." When I carefully unfolded it, there was a small mushroom cloud and my initials S.I. embroidered in blue thread on the sleeve of the shirt. "That's wonderful," I said. Her mother smiled, holding back tears. "Yes. There's nothing to worry about anymore." That night, when I boarded the train at Hiroshima Station, I received the shirt through the window. Holding it close to my chest, I thought about the 15 years that had passed. The train blew its whistle and slowly began to move.